Hello, friends. A rhyme and reason behind my madness. I'll dig into this a little bit here as we kind of go through. Before you get comfy, I would just suggest bring your pen and pencil, your pen and paper, not pen and pencil, or you can bring both pen and pencil, but bring your pen and paper because there's going to be a lot of golden nuggets dropping here. But if you're new here as well, this podcast is for anyone who identifies a millennial. And if you're not a millennial, that's okay because there's a lot of juicy, important, critical, life-changing resources, tools, and guidance that I provide and share. And my intent is always to serve that to anybody who feels that it fits them and think that they'll make use with it. But ultimately, I'm a millennial born in 1983, and so that's what I'm here for. But also, this podcast is about creating space and community for people who may not find space and community in other places. So if you're here and you're not a millennial, it's all good. We love you, and thanks for joining us. Now, what is this episode? Episode 146. April is a interesting time. It's a change of season. It's a spring situation. Depending on where you are in the country, you may have already experienced it or you're not yet experiencing it. Hint, we're still in what it feels like winter here, but also it is a change of season. And ultimately, many people are kind of like peeling off the layers of what they just went through from the winter, and they're opening themselves up to feel the warmth of the sun, kind of getting that vitamin C, vitamin D, and trying to really feel like they're ready for a change. And it's also like the beginning of a new quarter if you're someone who pays attention to business or pays attention to the cadence of the quarters of the month. But also, I always find April, for me particularly, a time to pause, reflect, and start to think about what goals I want to go into the next 3 months of the year. I like to look at the calendar as that way because it gives you an opportunity to sit with yourself, sit with your thoughts, and take the space and time to be really thoughtful and also perhaps maybe even intentional in how you want to spend your time. And on top of that, it's actually the 6th anniversary of the podcast coming up in April. I knew that, but I also oftentimes don't pay attention to it. When I changed the seasons to annual as opposed to like the cycle of April to April, I always remind myself that April is the anniversary, but also it is just a unique time. So as we're looking into this new season, celebrating 6 years of the podcast, I'm leaning back into like the humble beginnings of where this came from and what this idea of this podcast was. So this episode is titled Find Your Purpose 15 Minutes. Now, consider it clickbait, but also with intention. And the reason behind the idea of find your purpose in 15 minutes is because there's a lot you can do in 15 minutes to get clarity, to create focus, and to be strategic and intention. And as we're starting a new quarter or a new cycle or a new season, call it that, not season from the podcast, but season in life or season in our seasons, weather, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of bring this back. And it's also a little bit of a pivot from like the cadence that I've been actually pushing the podcast to, which has been every other week. 1 week is career and 1 week is life. And this is kind of holistically both. So before I jump into all of the great and wonderful details about this particular episode, I want to jump into my segment that I like to call what I'm listening to, what I'm liking, and what to look out for. So I am still listening to Hilary Duff. I switched back also to, oh my goodness, what is her name? I just drew a blank. Don't make me have to open Spotify right now. I switched back. I don't know. She was on, oh my God, why am I drawing such a blank with who I'm thinking about here? Give me a sec. It'll come to me. Well, I'm looking it up is what I'm doing. Where is she? Damn, this is dumb. Demi Lovato. Wow. I feel like the album, it's called It's Not That Deep. It came out last year. It did not get, I think, in my opinion, the love that it deserved. There's so many layers to this album. Demi Lovato was someone that I didn't necessarily grow up listening to, but she had bangers that I would listen to on the radio and bangers that ultimately just came through in the dance, music. I always listen to EDM music, and my primary channel is SiriusXM 51 back then, now it's 52. So if you're a BPMer, hey, shout out to the BPMers that listen. But I've always loved the lyrics to her music, and I've always followed her. And when this album came out, I was like, yes, this is what I needed. And I resonated with the album. So she was, I believe, on Kelly Clarkson's show, and then she was on The Tonight Show to promote her tour that I think she's going to, later this year, or started this year already. And so I went back to listen to the album, and it is one of my favorite albums that I'm listening to right now. The other thing that I'll say, what I'm watching, is Scarpetta. So huge fan of Nicole Kidman, and even a bigger fan of the amazing, talented, and iconic, oh my God, why am I drawing her name? The Coffee Friends has not really kicked in as best as it can. Right now, I am on my second cup of coffee. All honestly, this is my cup. It's a cold brew with super creamer and ice. And for me, it's like my go-to kind of like as seasons start to change. So I'm hoping this kicks in fairly quickly here. So I was saying Scarpetta. It's on Amazon Prime. Jamie Lee Curtis. Thank you so much. Jamie Lee Curtis. She is perhaps one of my favorite artists, or actresses, I should say. When I saw that this was coming as a series, I got super excited because, one, I'm a huge fan of just horror in general, but also like I love crime and investigative type of that genre of like, you know, investigating crimes and things of that sort has always been fun for me to explore, and also like just curiosity. And when I found out she was, I think, on the Kelly Clarkson show, here we go, Kelly Clarkson. If you know me, you know about Kelly Clarkson. So if you know, you know. She was talking about how she had gone to Patricia, who I think is the person who writes the books. I forget her last name, but she asked her if there was any thoughts or conversations about this becoming a series or a movie or something. And I guess it came down to the fact that like it just never got launched or never got piloted. Like there was some conversations about it, but nothing happened with it. Long story short, she brought it to Blumhouse, and Blumhouse said yes. So she produces the series. Y'all, if you're not watching this, you need to go watch it. It is so good. I think I'm on episode 4. Gosh, it's just so well done. I'm not going to give out any spoilers, but the way they go back and forth in time and the people they casted as the younger versions of the characters in the series is spot on. It's such a good cast. It's so well written and produced. I'm really excited for this to do really well. And I have to say, I think the reason why I like it so much is because anything that Jamie Lee Curtis does, to me, in my opinion, is just like gold. And she's so multi-talented, and Nicole Kidman does an amazing job. The way these two come together, you would never think that they would be acting together, but they're really good. So that's what I'm watching. What to look out for. So there's a lot to look out for, my friends. One, you know, if you're going through something hard and you're going through something challenging right now, just know that things get better with time, and you have to take deep breaths, and you have to give yourself some grace. It's hard. I think a lot of people right now are going through a lot of shit, and hence why I wanted to do this episode. But also, more importantly, it is not easy in today's world and how we're living and how things are going down to feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I have to tell you that you need to surround yourself with people who help you create a positive mindset, but also your mindset is your own, and you have to control that, and you have to decide how do you let that, you know, energy, whether it's negative or not negative, but just doesn't feel good, consume you. And even if that means you have to detox from social media or stay away from certain headlines or whatever that looks like for you, do so. Do what feels good for you, and talk to somebody. Talk to your support system, talk to your community. The other thing I will say to look out for, I made an announcement on LinkedIn earlier this week, and it was basically sharing my news around the place that I'm working at. I am not going to say it because this is my podcast. So if you want to know more about where I'm working, you can go watch my LinkedIn post that I posted on Monday. But I have to say, the reason I'm mentioning it is because I know oftentimes people are challenged by the job search and the job search environment, and how to kind of overcome what comes with being in that process. And I always tell people sometimes it's easier to look for a job when you have one than it is when you don't, or it's just as challenging because it can be just as exhausting if you do have a job versus you don't have a job. But I will say that this current economy and job market right now is a minimum of 6 months for you to see a potential return on your investment in time for applying to jobs. And it doesn't mean that's the case. I do believe that you could still land a job in 90 days. There's a podcast episode that I shared before and did and recorded that talks about how to secure a job in 90 days. I don't remember which episode it was, but go back and watch it or search in, for keywords 90 days or something. But I think that the challenge with the job market as we continue to see more and more people applying is that there's very competitive. And employers are really being strategic in how they're doing their hiring. Dollars are, strapped depending on what industry you're looking at. And if you're not in an industry where money is an issue, it's even more competitive because now you have people pivoting out of jobs that they don't have, people who are either burnt out and sick of their jobs pivoting to a new job, and then people who are just like, I want a new job, but I don't really want to leave my job, but I want to apply to something new and see if I can get it. Like there's so many cases or nuances as to like where that comes from. So what I'll say is that for me, the job search process was a lot longer than my last job search. And my last job search, not this current job search, but my previous one was met with challenges that I ultimately decided to pursue. In those cases, I had just decided that like when I was job searching back in 2024 and considering looking for a job, that I gave myself space and time to do work, do the creative things that I like to do, and invest in my business before job searching. So it took me a little bit longer in that use case. But this time around, I actually went from like leaving my company to starting my new company. And well, not starting my new company, leaving my company and then starting a new job search. And I had already been looking for a job prior to leaving my last company because I wasn't like being strategic in looking when I was still working there. I was being very intentional and just browsing, right? I was kind of like window shopping. But when I left, I got more intentional and I got more strategic. And so I'll have another episode that I'll talk more about this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the job search piece and bring it up here because I think it's important to talk about. There are so many millennials in today's world who are feeling not just burnt out, but feeling uncertain about where they're sitting in their position from work perspective and trying to decide if like they're being fulfilled by their employer, being fulfilled by their job and what they're doing. And so this particular episode, kind of transitioning here and kind of making that move is really, really, I think, important to discuss. So let's just jump into it here. Find your purpose in 15 minutes. All right. So I have so many notes. Because I outline the episode and I kind of create a framework to keep myself on task. And I have certain things that I sometimes read off of and certain things that I riff off of. But I'm pulling together so many pieces of other episodes together into this to give you kind of like a micro-sized version. So, okay, here we go. So you did everything you're supposed to do. You climbed the ladder, chased the titles, and got the salary bumps. But from the outside, you've checked all the boxes, but there's still quite a nagging feeling inside you, isn't there? A sense of emptiness. You feel stuck, like you're a well-paid actor in someone else's life. Anybody have this sentiment? Anybody feel like, you did all the things you were told to do and you feel like you did them, but like something is still missing? Things are just still not where you think you should be or want to be. That feeling isn't a sign of being broken. It is your body sending you a signal, kind of like those things they put on lighthouses that blink and it's flashing so that the planes don't hit it when they're going over, kind of like that kind of thing. But it's it's a slow pulse signal, right? What I call this is the personal meaning penalty. It's the silent tax you pay when your day-to-day life just doesn't line up with who you are inside. And you're living a life that looks great on paper, but feels hollow. You're drifting, overwhelmed, and it feels like you're living a life that isn't even yours. But what I told you that is that you could find your authentic purpose in the next 15 minutes. And when I said that, I meant it. So not through some decade-long spiritual quest, but right here, right now, with a surprisingly simple reflection exercise. What if you could finally get the clarity you've been searching for, a compass to guide you towards a career that doesn't just pay the bills, but actually feels fulfill and fulfills you. Stay with me, friends, because that's exactly what we're about to jump into. So this first portion of this exercise that we're going on together is called The Great Deception: Why Chasing Goals Leaves You Empty. And the reason behind this, like I said before, is that I kind of took a bunch of other episodes that I have done, and I wanted to consolidate thoughts, call to actions, and processes to streamline something that I think can work for everybody. And in particular, in the instance of going through a season of change, I think it's so poignant. Like, it's the first of the month. It's a new quarter in the year. We're kind of a week and a half, 2 weeks into spring. And I think so many people are like in this headspace of like, how do I find a purpose? But people don't see the word purpose. People say a bunch of different things. They say the negative connotation to it. I feel like people get stuck on saying, I feel stuck. I don't feel great about where I am. They say all these other adjectives, but the word purpose doesn't come into the vocabulary. And what we're going to do here is really create a roadmap that's going to help you dig deeper into asking yourself questions and getting into the meat and the potatoes of it all to really uncover where you can get the clarity to find your purpose. So let's jump into this first section. Again, The Great Deception: Why Chasing Goals Leaves You Empty. So from a young age, we're handed a map. This map tells us the treasure: happiness, fulfillment, success. It's found at the destination of prestigious titles or a six-figure salary, right? In some cases, that's kind of like how we're taught. Go to school, get the job, keep growing, do what you do, and, make the good money, and then buy the house and get married and have the kids, or whatever that looks like for you. But you're kind of told that this is the map of what life should look like. We're conditioned to chase these external goals, believing they're what life is all about. Sit with that for a little bit here. We're conditioned to chase these external goals, believing they're what life is all about. Now, here's the problem. That map is a lie. Honestly, it's a lie. It leads to a destination you don't even want to be at. Chasing titles, money gives you a short-term hit of happiness. It's a phenomenon known as the hedonic adaptation. It's like a treadmill. After you hit the initial excitement of, a raise or a promotion, it wears off on you. You're doing more work, and then you feel like you're being given more work and more responsibilities. But do you feel like you're having the same value in return? And yeah, you're making a little bit more money, but is it really giving you that fulfillment, right? And do you ever find yourself returning to that same level of happiness that you previously had? And so then, if you're miserable, then how do you find that track to get back to where you were? I always say it's just like a little fancier title, a little bit more cash. It's a constant draining of a chase, right? You're going back in for a little bit more of this to get a little bit more of that, but is it really getting you to where you want to be and where you want to go? It ultimately creates a vicious cycle. You start looking for external validations, what jobs are hiring, what salaries are trending. And it leads to some cases paralysis because those generic goals didn't connect with who you are. A lot of it comes from the fact that we spend so much time focused in becoming the thing that we're supposed to do, we forget how to become the person we want to be. And you're truly put into a situation where it's trying to fix a deep, internal problem with a shallow external solution. And you're looking for purpose outside of yourself when it can only be even found within you. So I think what's really important is that as we go through life, there's always a cost. And the cost is the misalignment of how we've been told how to live and the things to do in this roadmap that was given to us, but never the one that ultimately leads us to a true intentional purpose. So how do we get back on track? How do we kind of get back to a space of being aligned and feeling aligned? Well, you almost have to realize you're hitting that rock bottom, or in some cases, the Sunday scaries start to creep up on a Saturday afternoon, or, you're burning out and pouring out your soul into work that feels transactional instead of transformational, or it's the quiet dread of looking back years from now while filled with regret of a life you lived on someone else's terms. Those things happen sometimes, almost always, but doesn't have to be that way, which is why we're having this conversation before you make a change, before you transition to doing something different. And so with what we're talking about here today is really looking at how do we take this moment where you're kind of getting that signal to your nervous system and in your body, and it's telling you, hey, something is not aligned here. Something that you feel is happening, but you keep ignoring that you need to pay attention to. You have to pay attention. So let's look at the compass that we can really realign ourselves to going on the right path to help you find the purpose that's inside you. Because trust me when I say this, it's inside you. You just have to call it out and find it. So here's the most important thing you'll hear today. You don't need to find your purpose. You need to uncover it. Your purpose isn't some hidden treasure in a faraway land. It's a compass that you've carried inside you all along. You just haven't been taught how to read it. And that's what's really going to change here. This isn't just a feel-good idea. The psychiatric and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl built his entire life's work on this concept, which he called the logo theory. Based on his experiences, Frankl argues that the primary motivational force for humans isn't the pursuit of pleasure or power, but the will to find meaning. The most powerful tool for uncovering the meaning is self-reflection, period. It's how you build the self-awareness you need to live a life of intention. It's about taking a deliberate pause from the noise of the outside world to listen to the wisdom of your own life. When you do this, you start noticing patterns, connecting dots, and finally distinguishing between the goals society handed you and the desire that comes from your authentic self. A way of thinking of this is like an artist seeing a sculpture inside a block of marble. The masterpiece is already there. The work simply to chip away the excess stone that's hiding it. Your authentic self is waiting to be set free. And it's your job to bring that person to life. There's so many things that I think we can take away from philosophers and people who studied psychology and people who study holistic well-being and people who are mindset coaches and people who are life coaches, and me included, spend a lot of time studying these things so that I can help other people find them. When I realized that my goal is always to help people. And I knew that. To say I want to do something that helps people isn't always easy to find what that connects to filling your, how you feel fulfilled. And I have had many jobs where I've felt fulfilled in helping others. My higher education career was very much so that. But I also knew and felt that I needed to have a career pivot because it led me in a path that I didn't know that I could do more and have a stronger impact. Hence the pivot to being a coach and having a coaching practice, but also the actual job that I hold full time is in a space where I'm having much more higher impact in helping people. So I still keep that part of the work that I do because I feel that it is fulfilling for me. Is it where I'm meant to be doing all the time? Absolutely not. And that's where balance comes into play. So in keeping in theme with how do we uncover this purpose and how do we dig deeper into our authentic selves, the exercise that we're about to do is called a purpose audit. And it's structured in 4 steps. It's a ritual designed to help you chip away the excess stone and reveal the blueprint of your purpose. It won't take you a month or a year. It'll simply take 15 minutes. So like I said at the top of the conversation or the episode, grab your pen and paper, open up your phone or open up a notebook, and let's dive right into it. So this first section here, you can title it the 15-minute purpose audit, whatever you want to title it. But what I would encourage you to do is to find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted, because we're going to move through these 4 steps, and I want to guide you through each step. And so be mindful as I start to call out each section or each step. The first step here should take you about 5 minutes. And what I would say is that I would encourage you to pause and do the exercise while you're doing it, or you can copy the transcript of the episode and put it into a Google Doc and, space out the different sections to come back to it later and then print it off and write your notes. However you feel will work for you. But I will tell you each section and I'll break it down for you as I'm going through it because I'm going to spend most of the time reading from what I wrote out. Okay, so the first step, the energy audit. So first draw a line down the middle of your page. On the left side, write, gave me energy. On the right side, write, drained my energy. Love this one. Now think about your past week or month. List every activity, task, and interaction you can remember. Put each one in the column where it belongs. What activities made you feel alive, engaged, and in a state of flow? When did time seem to disappear? It could be anything. Leading a team meeting, solving a complex problem, mentoring a junior colleague, organizing spreadsheets, or even just a great conversation you had. Now, what activities felt like a ton of bricks? What did you procrastinate on? What left you feeling totally depleted? And be brutally honest with yourself. This is for you. You're the only person who's going to see this unless you share it with somebody else. But I think it's important to know that, like, if you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to get the outcome that your self deserves. So really lean into that. Now, pause for a second and look at your side that says gave me energy, or the column that says gave me energy. Did you see any patterns? Was there a common thread? Maybe the items all involved creativity or problem solving or helping people. That pattern is the first major clue to your purpose. It's pointing directly at the kind of work that naturally fuels you. When I work with clients, and one of my favorite things to do in this type of work is particularly working with small groups. And I love the Strengths Quest assessment tool. This is called the Gallup Finder or the Clifton Strengths Quest. It's an assessment tool that helps people understand and uncover their top 5 strengths based on 34 distinct themes that are created by Donald Clifton, who is a brilliant man and a theorist that believes that people are at their best when they're using their top 5 strengths. And each individual strength has a really distinct description and thought behind it and definition that helps people understand how to connect that to the work that they do, but also in life, the relationships, in money, all the things that really are fulfilling to a person's whole self. And the reason I bring this up is because the idea of this particular exercise is looking at, what gave you energy and what drained your energy. And you always have to think about it from that viewpoint of, like, when were you at your best? Think of a time when you were at your best. And so taking that same thought is the same thing that I do when I'm presenting to small groups or leading a training in small groups where I'm actually helping teams understand how to work better together and developing their strengths as a team and understanding how each strength can work collaboratively. And I always call that, how do you find your zone of genius? Or in this case, your state of flow, right? So I think it's so important to kind of share that. So if you're anybody who is interested in wanting to explore your strengths finder or your top 5 themes, is what it's called, you live off of your top 5, hit me up. Always happy to jump in. And there was a series in, I think, season 1 or season 2, where I interviewed a lot of people and we talked about the top 5 themes. And I think we made it through all 34, but definitely worth bringing that one back, perhaps maybe in season 7. We'll see. So step 2, the 5 whys. So we're going to use the example of one thing that is a big frustration or a strong desire in your life right now. In this example, the example is, I want to quit my job. This is what I hear a lot from people. We're going to use the technique for the 5 whys to drill down what that is. The reason for I want a new job. So the first why is, why? Because my current one feels meaningless. So you're saying why you want to quit your job or why you want a new job. The second why is, well, why does it feel meaningless? So you're applying the adjective or the feeling to the next why. And you're asking yourself this. The response could be, because I don't feel like I'm helping anyone. The next why is helping people important to you? So you see how we're kind of pulling from that. The response could be, because it makes me feel connected and useful. The fourth why is, why do you need to feel connected and useful? The response could be, because it proves that my work actually matters. The fifth why does it matter to you? Or why does it matter that your work matters? And the answer could be, because I want to leave a positive impact. So now we've had 5 questions we just ask ourselves. We went from a surface level complaint to our core values that left us with an impact. The frustration wasn't really about the job. It's about lack of alignment, which is a deep personal drive that you're looking for. So the next thing here is that I want you to take a moment to do this for yourself and to pay attention to your own frustrations or desires. And really underneath all of this, what is the core value that's hiding? What is the core piece to all of this? We're going deep into this exercise to help you uncover that. So moving along, let's jump to number 3. So the values check-in and future self, this should take you about 4 minutes. So for this section here, your values are your non-negotiables. They're the bedrock of your purposeful life. Quickly list top 3 to 5 core values. If you're stuck, think about what you admire in others or what you'd fight for. Think of words like freedom, security, growth, creativity, or community. Now look at the list of values. Ask yourself this critical question. Does my daily work and give me energy list reflect these values? Is there a major disconnect that you found, or is there a dissatisfaction at the source? Next, I want you to close your eyes for 30 seconds. I want you to imagine your future self, 5 or 10 years from now, living in a life that is perfectly aligned with your purpose. What are you doing every day? How do you feel when you wake up? What kind of impact are you making? Who are you with? 30 seconds, close your eyes, think of these things, pause. This is reflection. Now, I don't want you to overthink it. Just notice the first images, feelings, or words that pop into your head. Open your eyes and jot them down. That vision is your destination. The gap between where you are now and that vision is where your journey begins. Very simple, very easy. It's an opportunity for you to see yourself in a space, in a place, in a time that gives you an idea. And as cheesy as it sounds, you have to remember that you're the only one that's responsible and accountable for how you drive your life, your future, and your purpose. So if you don't take the time to do those types of things like we just reflected on and just did, you're the one that's losing out. Now let's jump into step 4. This is called the regret minimizing question. 2 minutes. This is the final step also. So this is a powerful question designed to cut through fear and short-term thinking. Ask yourself, if I were 80 years old looking back at my life, what decisions or actions would I need to take today to minimize my regrets? This isn't about being reckless. It's about activating courage. Often the path of purpose requires a step that feels scary. This question reframes that fear and reminding you that the pain of regret is almost always greater than the pain of trying and failing. Listen to the answer that comes up. It's your gut talking, free from the grip of fear. Very simple. It may scare you to think about the answer that you come up with, but I think you're reflecting on it because you're not there yet and you have an opportunity to make change now to not go to that time. Maybe when you do make it to 80 and you get to that point in your life, you can think that I made that change that changed the course of your life for the good. So this is the next section here to kind of wrap us up and kind of give you a call to action from all of this. So this is called From Audit to Action and What to Do Next. So take a look at what you wrote down, and in less than 15 minutes, you've created a blueprint. You've identified your energy sources, you uncovered your core motivations, clarified your values, and connected with the vision for your future. This is your purpose. It's not as vague, abstract concept, but as a concrete set of direction. But clarity is useless without action. This audit isn't a one-time fix, it is a practice. I encourage you to make this a brief weekly or monthly ritual. Keep listening to what your life is trying to tell you. The goal isn't to dramatically quit your job tomorrow. The goal is to start making small intentional shifts that bring your life more in line with your purpose. If you discovered a core value that's creativity, you could pitch one small innovative project at work. If you found energy in helping others, you could start mentoring a junior colleague for 30 minutes a week. These small purpose-aligned actions build momentum. There are votes you can cast for the person you want to become. Over time, these small steps forge a new path, one that leads you away from emptiness and towards a life of deep, authentic fulfillment. So your call to action here is to help you turn this new clarity into a concrete plan. I've obviously created other podcast episodes, and some of them are audio and some of them are video that outline, these practical steps. Like I said before, this is a merger of these, and creating something that's more succinct. But I want you to pay attention to the things that are happening around you and create more awareness. And take the time to do this frequently. Come back to this. Journaling is so important. And I think it's so intentional. I sometimes just journal right in my phone because I don't have a notebook with me, but I always keep a journal in my office. And I'm consciously writing things down in thoughts. I always have post-its with me too. So take this exercise and start looking for those aha moments. Start to take note of the things that are making your energy shift. Start to always go back to taking this activity as a way to create a framework for yourself to find a more fulfilling life and a more intentional life. Now, if you found that this particular episode gave you excitement, energy, or feel like someone else in your life needs it, please share it with them. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're watching this, or if you're listening to it, don't forget to follow us. Ultimately, for too long, you've been chasing and we've been chasing a finish line that keeps moving. And you've always been playing a game you weren't meant to win because the prize isn't the title, it isn't the salary. It was never the real reward. The real prize is the feeling of living a life that is authentic with expression and authentic to you. And we've just created a compass to help you get that journey going. So take the first step and start living with intention. I hope that this episode brought you intention in life, and I'm looking forward to jumping into the next one with you. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. And until the next episode, friends, enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.